In the year 2025, the world bid farewell to Pope Francis, who died at the age of 88 after almost 12 years of pontificate. With the death of the pontiff, the Catholic Church once again prepares for a conclave, the secret gathering of cardinals to elect a new head of the Church. Today, papal elections seem strictly regulated and peaceful, yet history recalls numerous cases where the struggle for the throne of St. Peter was marked by vivid intrigues, conspiracies, and at times, even violence. In the early centuries of Christianity, the Bishop of Rome was usually chosen by the clergy and the people of Rome. Nonetheless, disputes and even dual elections already occurred. Thus, in the year 418, two candidates, Boniface I and Eulalius, were simultaneously proclaimed pope, and the dispute had to be settled by Emperor Honorius. The emperor supported Boniface and decreed for the future: if papal elections lead to division, a new vote must be held. Even earlier appeared the phenomenon of the anti-pope, a person illegally proclaimed pope in opposition to another. Traditionally, the first anti-pope is considered to be the priest Natalius in the 3rd century, followed by Saint Hippolytus, and the last, Felix V. Unity within the Church was often disrupted by ambition and discord. Over time, secular rulers increasingly interfered in papal elections. Byzantine emperors, up until the 8th century, confirmed the elected pope, without which he could not assume his duties. But the true intrigues and dramas unfolded during the Middle Ages, when the throne of St. Peter became the object of struggle for powerful dynasties and sovereigns. The trial of a dead pope. One of the most shocking episodes in papal history occurred at the end of the 9th century, involving a posthumous punishment of the late Pope Formosus. He was elected pope in the year 891, but shortly after his death, his successors launched a terrifying vendetta. In the year 897, the newly elected Pope Stephen VI, acting in the interests of a powerful Roman family, ordered Formosus's corpse to be exhumed and put on ecclesiastical trial. At this gruesome cadaver synod, the decomposing body, dressed in papal robes, sat in the defendant's chair, with a deacon answering on his behalf. Formosus was formally accused of violating canon law. His sacred vestments were torn off, 3 fingers of his right hand, the very hand used for blessings, were cut off, and the mutilated corpse was thrown into the Tiber River. Stephen VI attempted to annul all decisions and ordinations performed by Formosus, effectively declaring his pontificate illegal. However, the horrifying act enraged the Roman people. Within months, Stephen was deposed, imprisoned, and strangled. Call it karma. In the years that followed, the papal throne continued to endure violence and chaos, but the cadaver synod remained a chilling symbol of how far papal intrigues could go. The pope who sold the throne. In the 11th century, the papacy again sank into scandal. Especially notable is the story of Pope Benedict IX, a member of a powerful noble house who managed to become pope 3 times and gained infamy for unprecedented corruption. Elected as a young man, around 20 years old, with a fiery temper, Benedict so outraged the Roman population that he was expelled from the city multiple times. In the year 1045, he took an unthinkable step. He sold the papal throne. Benedict transferred the title of pope to his godfather, priest Giovanni Graziano, in exchange for a large sum of money, effectively treating the Holy See as a commodity. Graziano took the name Gregory VI, hoping to restore order, but the situation only worsened. Benedict IX soon changed his mind and sought to reclaim power, while another rival, Sylvester III, elected earlier by the Roman nobility, still laid claim to the papacy. The Church now had 3 popes simultaneously: Benedict IX, Gregory VI, and Sylvester III. The scandal required intervention by secular authority. Emperor Henry III of the Holy Roman Empire arrived in Italy and convened the Synod of Sutri in December of the year 1046. At the synod, the issue was resolved. Henry III appointed a new pope, Clement II. The sale of the papacy prompted reforms. The sale of the papal office was banned, and future papal elections were entrusted to the College of Cardinals. Cardinals in captivity. Despite efforts to regulate the process, intrigues persisted. In the 13th century, the Church experienced what would become the longest papal election in history. After the death of Pope Clement IV in the year 1268, the cardinals could not agree on a successor. The sessions were held in the town of Viterbo and turned into endless disputes. No one secured the required majority. The election dragged on for 1,006 days, nearly 3 years. Eventually, the citizens of Viterbo grew tired of the power vacuum. They literally locked the cardinals in the bishop's palace and demanded they not be released until a new pontiff was chosen. Even this didn't work at first. The prelates continued to intrigue among themselves. Then the townspeople took drastic measures. They removed the roof of the building, leaving the cardinals exposed to the elements, and reduced their diet to bread and water. Only after such persuasive methods did the exhausted cardinals finally reach an agreement, electing in the year 1271 a new pope. He was Teobaldo Visconti, who took the name Gregory X. The traces of the tents where the cardinals lived under open skies during the conclave of 1268 to 1271 can still be seen in Viterbo. These harsh measures inspired new rules. Pope Gregory X decreed that cardinals be locked under key during elections, with their food supply reduced if they delayed in reaching a decision. Despite the discontent of the cardinals, the practice of the enclosed conclave endured. In the year 1294, a curious case occurred. After 2 years of unsuccessful voting, the cardinals elected an elderly hermit monk, Pietro del Morone, famed for his holy life. He became Pope Celestine V, one of the few pontiffs who was not a cardinal. However, managing the church proved too difficult for the naive hermit. After only 5 months, Celestine V shocked everyone by voluntarily abdicating and returning to his solitary life. It is said he was encouraged to do so by influential cardinals, particularly Benedetto Caetani, who would become the next pope under the name Boniface VIII. The end of the 14th century was marked by the greatest crisis in the history of the throne of St. Peter, a time when Christians were split into camps, each with its own pope. In the year 1378, Pope Gregory XI died, and the Roman people, fearing the election of yet another French pope, incited an uprising in the city. Under the pressure of the crowd, the cardinals elected an Italian, Pope Urban VI. But the joy of the Romans did not last long. The new pontiff proved to be hot-tempered and began to clash with the Curia. The French cardinals declared the election invalid, citing threats of violence, and chose their own pope, Clement VII, who established himself in Avignon, France. Thus began what came to be known as the Great Western Schism. 2 popes ruled simultaneously, one in Rome, the other in Avignon, each with his own hierarchy and support from different rulers. Europe was divided. Some countries recognized the Roman Pope, others the Avignon Pope, and no one was willing to yield. A few decades later, the situation became even more complicated. In the year 1409, both reigning popes were declared deposed, and the cardinals elected a new pontiff, Alexander V. But instead of resolving the crisis, this only made things worse. Now there were 3 popes. Neither the Roman nor the Avignon Pope recognized the decision of the council, and all 3 rival claimants insisted on their legitimacy. Pope Gregory XII of Rome agreed to abdicate voluntarily, while the Avignon Pope and John XXIII of Pisa, successor of Alexander V, were forced to renounce their claims. A new legitimate pope was elected, Martin V. The Renaissance: brilliance and scandal. The Renaissance brought not only a flourishing of the arts to Rome, but also new scandals in the papal elections. A striking example is the election of Alexander VI Borgia in the year 1492, which became almost synonymous with papal corruption. Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia, a member of a powerful Spanish dynasty, had long aspired to become pope and, according to rumors, spared no expense to achieve his goal. During the conclave of the year 1492, Borgia showered his fellow cardinals with promises and generous gifts, essentially buying votes. The newly elected pope became known as one of the most controversial pontiffs in history. The name Borgia became associated with nepotism, luxury, and political intrigue. The scandalous simony surrounding his election sparked outrage even within church circles. The very next pope, Julius II, introduced stricter rules against corruption in conclaves. Nevertheless, papal elections were far from rid of manipulation. In the following centuries, wealthy families, national factions of cardinals, and monarchs of European states continued to influence the outcome. The last imperial veto. By the beginning of the 20th century, secular powers still attempted to influence the results of conclaves, although the methods had become more civilized. Catholic emperors and kings had long held a special privilege, the right of veto, meaning they could, through their delegated cardinal, block the election of an undesirable candidate. This privilege was rarely used, but it did exist. The last case occurred during the conclave of the year 1903, following the death of Pope Leo XIII. The favorite was Cardinal Mariano Rampolla, the Secretary of State. However, Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria-Hungary adamantly opposed Rampolla's candidacy, likely due to his pro-French stance. On behalf of the emperor, Cardinal John Puzina officially announced an imperial veto against Rampolla during the conclave. For the first time in many years, a monarch intervened directly and successfully. Despite having considerable support, Rampolla was immediately eliminated from the race. Ultimately, another cardinal was chosen, Giuseppe Sarto, who took the name Pius X. The new pope wasted no time abolishing the centuries-old tradition. He issued a decree permanently forbidding any kind of veto in papal elections. Ironically, he owed his own election to that very veto. Since then, neither emperors nor governments have officially interfered in the papal selection process. Incidentally, since the early 20th century, conclaves have become notably shorter, usually lasting no more than a few days. In modern history, one of the most discussed episodes remains that of Pope John Paul I. His pontificate was one of the shortest, only 33 days in the year 1978. Cardinal Albino Luciani was elected on the 26th of August and took the name John Paul I, charming the faithful with his modesty and warm smile. But on the night of the 28th of September, the 65-year-old pope died suddenly. Officially, the Vatican announced a heart attack as the cause. However, the lack of details fueled numerous rumors and conspiracy theories. John Paul I died under mysterious circumstances, and although the Church insists that nothing criminal occurred, the abrupt death of a relatively young pope gave rise to intense speculation. Books and articles emerged suggesting possible poisoning, perhaps because of financial investigations the Pope planned to initiate in the Vatican, or due to fears of his potential reforms. Then, in the year 2013, something happened that had not occurred since the time of Celestine V. Pope Benedict XVI voluntarily abdicated. It was the first papal resignation in almost 600 years, since the end of the Great Schism. Officially, there were no intrigues, yet an amateur investigation revealed that he knew about priests who enjoyed the company of children and remained silent. He also knew that cardinals were embezzling church funds and enjoying life. Benedict denied everything. He died in the year 2022 at the age of 95. Today's conclave, tradition meets secrecy. Today, the process of electing a new pope is strictly regulated. After the death of a pontiff, the period of sede vacante begins, and within 15 to 20 days, a conclave is convened. Cardinals from around the world participate, nowadays only those under the age of 80. A strict rule of isolation is enforced. The cardinals are locked inside a designated area of the apostolic palace, completely cut off from the outside world. No one may leave or communicate externally until the election concludes. Before beginning, they jointly attend Mass, then take an oath of strict secrecy. The very word conclave means with a key, emphasizing the private nature of the gathering. The election proceeds through secret ballots. According to established procedure, up to 4 rounds of voting are held per day, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. Each cardinal writes the name of his chosen candidate on a ballot, folds it, and places it into a chalice on the altar. To be elected, a candidate must receive a majority, traditionally at least 2/3 of the votes. If no candidate reaches the required number, the ballots are burned in a special furnace with chemicals that produce black smoke, signaling to the world that no pope has yet been elected. Voting is repeated again and again. Usually, modern conclaves are relatively swift. When the necessary majority is finally achieved, the moment millions of faithful await takes place. White smoke rises from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, the sign that a new pontiff has been chosen. The cardinals approach the elected candidate and ask whether he accepts the choice and what name he wishes to take. Upon accepting, a touching moment follows. The senior cardinal steps onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and announces, "We have a pope." Then, his name is revealed. Thousands in St. Peter's Square erupt with joy, the bells ring out. Ahead of the new pope lies a long path of service, while behind remain the secretive days of voting. But what happened in those sacred halls will remain a mystery. The secrecy of the conclave is guarded most strictly.